Hey everybody, Scoutcrafty here again, midweek Wednesday. We got a good show planned for you today, a little bit of a retraction to begin with, and then a send-in from some good friends of the show, Joe and Kasha Parton. And so let's get started right away. Okay, next up, I just really wanted quickly to talk about, we did this the other day, we talked about this great Tungar battery charger from Mike that we were able to get up and running again, 100 years old. And a couple people had asked, they said, well, how did you find out which was positive and negative on the taps that came out of here? And just let me tell you basically what's going on. A battery charger is basically, it converts alternating current, which comes from your house, to direct current. And it feeds that direct current into a battery, which charges it. That's basically what it does. And the difference between alternating current and direct current is alternating current goes back between positive and negative, flips back and forth. The polarities flip back and forth so many times per second. In North America, it does 60 times a second. The rest of the world is 50. But here it's called hertz, right? So if we go to hertz here, it'll say, you see it's 59.99, but it's close to 60 hertz a second. That means that's how many times the alternating current's going back and forth. Now, when we go here to the voltage, I have it on the Variac. I lowered it down to 116. I can lower it down even more to 115.3 Z. Now, I have my meter here set at a volts alternating current, right? Now, I'm going to put the two probes into the outlet here, okay, on here. I'm going to put the two probes in here, if I can do this without getting shocked here. You can see we got 115 volts, right? Now, if I switch the probes, I'm going to turn them, switch, reverse them, negative and positive, put them back into the slots here, and you'll see it still reads the same, 115, okay? Because it's alternating current, so it don't show like a negative or positive because it's constantly switching back and forth. However, I'm going to show you how I figured out which one of these probes were positive and negative. Okay, so here's how I found out which one of these leads, because I couldn't tell from here which were positive and negative, and I'll show you how I found out. I have the Tungar battery charger fired up. It's working now. You could hear it humming. And you can see the light is on. That's just a slight load on these two clips. Now, I have this set to 20 volts DC. I don't know if you could see that meter down here. I have 20 volts DC. Now, I have these marked positive and negative. If you could see here, I marked them positive and negative. Let me just go over here. See, it says positive and negative because this is how I found out. Watch my meter here. I'm going to touch positive and negative, and you'll see it says 10.75 volts, okay? Now, if I switch them, watch what happens when I switch these leads. It's going to say the same voltage, but it's got a minus there. That means my leads are reversed. So that's how I found out the polarity on these two. And once I did, I marked it with positive and negative. You see? Negative and positive. I just marked it so I know. When you hook it up to a battery, you got to get those right. So that's how you check it. You put your meter on here, and if you have it right, it'll show you the correct way without the minus. Now, if you're using an analog meter, if you tried to do that, the analog meter, instead of moving forward, would move back. It would pin itself backwards. That's how you know you reverse the leads. Now, one other thing, the reason that this is supposed to be, it's supposed to put out 7.5 volts for a 6-volt battery. It's a 6-volt battery charger. The reason it's probably putting out more voltage, I don't have enough load on here to bring the voltage down. If I had a proper load, it would probably drop down to 7.5 volts, which we'll have to check. But there we go. And also another thing, Marcel, my buddy Marcel from Germany, had pointed out that probably this also has, the reason there's different taps on here for the voltage going in is to help the voltage going out. Now, let's try that. Remember, I have it on the Variac. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit positive and negative, okay? Now you can see we got 10.75 10.70, and I'm going to turn the voltage down on the variac and see if that corresponds. And sure enough, if I turn it down a little bit, you can see I could bring the voltage down to 9.5, and I could keep going down. If I turn it down 9 volts, so I could get that down. That's probably why that has those taps there. So there we go. Very interesting, right? Very interesting. A lot of fun. I enjoy playing down here, but I'm so glad we got this charger up and running correctly. Okay, next up, last week, do you remember we were talking about this great thermostat, this vintage thermostat, and I had mistakenly said that this vial here was filled with mercury. And I don't know, for some crazy reason, I had assumed, and you know what happens when you assume, I thought that this was colored mercury from when I was a kid. I don't know what it actually, and thank you for pointing that out. A bunch of you pointed that out real quickly, that this is indeed filled with ethyl alcohol, or one of those type of chemicals. And mercury, the mercury thermometers were the silvery gray thermometers that we've seen before, but this, anytime you see a red or blue, was a colored alcohol. So me not knowing that, I went on a binge to try and find out how come I was mistaken about that? How come I always thought it was colored mercury? And it very interesting history with thermometers. Now, although we can't really pinpoint the first person that came up with the thermometer, just like we can't pick the first person that came up with the light bulb, there was a combination of a bunch of different inventions that got together. But Galileo came out with this type of thermometer, and this is basically a glass tube that's filled with alcohol, and they have bubbles in here, and you can see they're colored bubbles, glass vials that have fluid in it, and they're all basically about the same, but they're tags that are here that tell you the temperature, and the tags here have different weights to them. And if you warm up this vial, the tags, the displacement will act differently on each one of these and lower, and that's how you can tell the temperature. So the lowest temperature that has the tag number is what the temperature is. I'm going to take the heat gun here and see if we can't move these up and down by warming up this vial. Here's my heat gun. I'm going to warm up the vial here, and as I do, you should see, as the ethyl alcohol in here warms up, you should see these start to move. I'm going to go into faster speed so you don't have to sit here and wait. Okay, now as you can see, I heated up the vial here to over 100 degrees. Now, this is 96 degrees, okay? So when this cools down to 96 degrees, that's what it says there, 96, and this rises up, that means that it'll be 96 degrees, that's what the glass will be. So if it was in a room, it would be 96 degrees. So when that moves up to the top, this will have cooled down to 96 degrees. So let's just wait a minute while that happens. Now, as this vial starts to normalize in temperature, a few of those glass vials will float to the top and some will stay at the bottom. And how you read this is the last vial that has floated to the top is basically the temperature. Sometimes there'll be one hovering in between, and you just split the temperature because they are in increments of 2 degrees. They're not every degree or so. So it's an interesting thermometer, but it's not something that is easily looked and read quickly. Okay, next up, I got a care package the other day from Joe and Kasia Parton. Apparently, they had to make an emergency trip to Poland, and I hope everything's okay, because whenever you hear emergency trip, it usually means somebody might not feel well or whatever. So I hope everything's okay with Kasia's family. Whatever the case, she's from Poland. As you know, or might not know, I am part Polish. I'm very proud of my Polish ancestry, especially nowadays. And they went there, and he brought back a few things, and he thought it'd be interesting for the show. Let's check it out. First of all, brought back these are candies that you would get from Poland, made in Poland. This one here, we have a Milky Way, which is the Polish version of Milky Way. A lot of times the ingredients are different. You know, they don't get to put in all the chemicals that they like to throw in here in the States for some reason. But here we go. Look at that. Nice cow on there. And here we go. I can't read a lot of it because it's in Polish. But there we go. Some great candy and then some really cool items. Let's go over and see what these items are because I'm really excited. Start with the biggest item first. This is a flashlight. He already sent over a really nice flashlight. This one here you can see. This is DDR. And what he found interesting about this is it has the anti-roll ring on here. Now, a lot of times they were round on top, but when you put it on a table or something, it could roll off. This would stop it from rolling. And they could see it was an octagon shape, I believe. But this is very interesting. I do not know look how this comes off. It just slides off and on, which is pretty interesting, which a lot of times they do for focusing. By doing that, you're able to focus. By having that bulb go up and down, you could focus the beam. But that's an unusual bulb. Have you ever seen a bulb like that before? Because I never have. Unusual shape. And I don't know if it's working. I can't get the bulb even out to try and see if I can hook it up to some voltage to get it to work, but I just can't get it out. We're gonna have to work on that. But that's very interesting, and that's what that's for. That up and down will give you focus on there. Very interesting. It's got the momentary switch that the old flashlights used to have a lot. Next, he said this was an East German screwdriver. We'll have to look at the label on there and clean this one up. And it's red, but we'll do a cleaning up on this one here. This is interesting. Do you know what this is? Anybody know? Look how nicely it's made. And of course he says it's Bakelite. What kind of maniac does like Bakelite? Look at that. And it says Bakelite number 60 on there. And you see there's a little, you know what that is? Anybody? This is an inkwell. Yeah, this is an inkwell. This, you would fill that with ink, and then when you want to use it, you would move that over. You could dip your quill in there, whatever, and then, or refill the pen, whatever the case may be. But it was an inkwell. Very nicely made. High quality. And then we have a pair of beautiful, made in Poland scissors. And these are already sharp. I already gave them a test on some paper towel here, and you could see these are really sharp. These are very nice, almost like a surgical type scissor, right? Beautiful. Next we have, he sent a light bulb. This one here is a Blaupunkt. Do you remember Blaupunkt in the 70s? They were the big thing with the stereos. Everybody had a Blaupunkt stereo in their cars in the 70s. They were like the hot seller. This here is a LED light, but the thing is, this is 240. They have, I think, 230 volts in Poland and 50 hertz. And so we don't have that over here, but I'd love to see how this works. I don't have any, even if I did get the 240, we'd have 60 hertz, you know. But interesting bulb nonetheless, because I don't have any 240 volt bulbs. And a couple of switches. Let's get to these. I'm always interested to see old vintage electrical components. This here I've never seen before. Look at this here. Now, you know that European plugs have two round, it's unlike we have flat bladed plugs, which look like this here. Which I always laugh, because every time the Europeans watch our channel, they're like, how can you Americans have such chintzy looking plugs and 110 volts, you know? And it's true. But remember, you know, it started off here. We were very early on, and it's just too late. But there we go. That's our plug. They have two round plugs that would plug into here. And this was, as you could see, you would screw this into a socket. It would give you a bulb that you could put in here. And also, you could put two plugs, one on each side there, and that's what they look like. They're plug receptacles. And then we have look at this beautiful light receptacle here. Now, this is obviously vintage, but look at this, is like a porcelain here, So let's screw that off there, okay? That's a porcelain cap. And there's your socket here. And you can screw, I believe this would screw, yeah, this will screw out like this, okay? And then look at this here. Look how nicely this is made. Again, porcelain here, and here is the switch itself. You see how that rocks? And when you turn it this way, it makes contact, and then it'll break contact, and it's just touching the porcelain. Contact, break contact. Isn't that something? These are totally rebuildable. You can clean them up if ever you have a problem. These things are they were meant literally to last forever. I mean, these 100 years old, this switch has to be close to 80 to 100 years old, and it's just absolutely beautiful, isn't it? And then we have these two. Let's check these out. Now, here's another beautiful inline Bakelite switch, and you can see here how this is made. Now, these inline switches, they're quite expensive, even now, even the reproductions, but the Bakelite ones are expensive to buy. And listen, you can hear how that switch. Let's see what makes this tick. We'll take these two screws, remove it. And okay, we loosened up those two screws. Here comes the cover. The cover is coming off, okay? Now it shows two more screws. Now, this is where your wire would come in. Now, to have an inline switch, I'm going to show you how we hook up an inline switch. But let's just unscrew those and see if this will come up and we can see what's under here. Okay, this is pressed in here, and I don't want to pry it out because there's a little spring in there that jumps back and forth with the contact. And if you look over here on top, you can see in the writing on the very top there, it says 6 amps at 250 volts. That's because this is European. In the United States at 120 volts, this would be good for 10 amps, okay? On the bottom here, it says, that's the number of the switch, I guess. It's 40, I can't see that, 4071, can you see that? I can't see it with my eyes. Anyway, so now what we're going to do is we're going to clean this, and I'm going to take some contact cleaner, and I'm going to spray it under here, and then I'm going to clean these little nuts here. You see that it always gets a little bit of corrosion on here. We're just going to hit them with the wire brush, get them clean, and I'm going to show you how to put an inline switch in that comes in handy so many times. The contact cleaner we're going to use, okay, CRC, and we're just going to spray a little bit underneath there, and that'll get rid of a lot of times any of the corrosion. Then we'll take a Q-tip and we'll wipe off any of the corrosion that might be on there. Work this back and forth a little bit. Okay, now I picked out an old cord here that sometimes I save these just to experiment with or to test out. So this is an old cord, and basically what you want to do is here's the end that plugs in. You want to take the other end and you figure out how far do you want to be from the appliance that you want to turn off and on. Sometimes you might want it farther away, but usually it's only a couple feet from the appliance that you want to have the switch. You don't want to be closer to the plug. You want to be closer to the appliance. So we're going to pick about here that we're going to put the switch in. Now the first thing you want to do is you try and get two pair of electrician pliers where you have a flat blade like this. Clamp one on one side and the other on the other side like this here. Just two pair of flat pliers. And when you clamp the two wires just like this, you're just going to separate them a little bit, okay? And when you do, that'll break them apart. You see how that broke apart like that? That's all you want to do. You just want to break it apart. Now, what you have to do is when you pull it apart, open it up like about that much, okay? Now what you have to do is figure out which side is the positive. And I was just finished telling you there's no negative and positive to alternating current, but there is a hot lead, which is the thinner lead, or if you look at your plug, this one unfortunately is an old-fashioned plug and they're both the same, but one of them will be wider, one of them will be narrow. The side with the narrow side is the hot side, and that's the side that you want to control the switch with. So you figure out which side is the hot side. In this one there is none, but let's say it was this one. We're going to cut that in the middle there. Now, if you look here, there's a valley that goes on each side of the switch, and basically what you want to do is you want to lay the cord like this here, okay, and have that go down in that valley, and then strip these two, and that's where they're going to go around the nuts there, and I'll show you what that looks like. So we're going to strip these two. That's the one wire. Now you can see I stripped them back, bent them over. We're going to put this in here like this. Try and twist it. Remember, you want the hook going to the right so that when you twist it down, you don't open the fray up. And then we're going to put these nuts that you cleaned off with the wire brush. We're going to put them back in, the screws, the little bolts. Okay, that's what it should look like when it's all finished. You have them nice and tight on here. You have that wire running along the side. We're going to put the cover back on, and then we'll test it out. Okay, here's our inline switch. Now let's check it out. Now to check it out, why not? Let's have some fun and put a switch on here. Now to hook off our switch, we'll take a little bit of a dielectric grease, put it onto there to lubricate the switch. You can hear how nice and smooth it is now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to run this wire through the base cup here, the brass, and strip out the two here, the little two ends, and we're going to run them through here. You'll see. Now remember, if you were doing the positive, the hot and neutral, you would want the hot going to the center conductor, but again, we don't have that issue here. But you're going to run it through here and wrap it around those screws, both sides, and tighten it down, and then put it together. Okay, here we go. We have an inline switch here. Okay, here's our inline switch that we did. How nice and smooth is that? And also, we have this switch here. Here we go. That's always fun. Good practice in the shop. Again, this isn't going to be hooked up to anything, but there we go. How great is that? Okay, next, remember Joe said that this came from East Germany, he said. I can't really read it. I'll clean it up. Let's clean this up real quick. Look at, this here is the flaking off of the chrome. It has a number on here. Can you see that? But can't really see. So first thing we're going to do is we'll hit it with the wire brush. We'll clean up the shaft, clean up this, and remember what it looked like. Okay, now unfortunately, when you see this, that's like a nickel plating. Nickel plating is notorious for chipping off like that. There's nothing you could do to save that. So the only thing you have to do is take it off and polish it, or you can leave it like that, but I like to take it off. And we're calling this project done. What do you think about that? Got a nice shine on that handle. Beautiful shade of red. Look at the shaft, how nice that came out now. Got rid of that chipping nickel. Looks much better, doesn't it, without that chipping nickel on there? There we go. This one's in the can. Okay, so in closing, special thanks to Joe and Kasha for today's send-ins, and we got a few things going on for Friday. I hope you'll tune in. We will see you then. Take care now. Bye-bye.